actuary? Do I want to be an academic? Do I want to be practicing law? Do I want to be teaching law? Do I want to be teaching mathematics? Because the degrees are a very short part of your life, right? And there are many degrees which are just fun to get, but don't get you where you want to be after that. You might think law school is awesome. I had a friend who thought law school was awesome and didn't enjoy practicing law.
And I had the opposite experience. I hated law school. I didn't think it was fun, but especially compared to philosophy. Yeah.
So think about further than the degree. Okay.
The other note I made related to this, and it might not apply in your case, but I did wait 10 years after my undergrad to go back for my grad degree, and I was very happy to have done that. Having time in the professional workforce really changed what I thought I would want to study, and graduate degrees are a big commitment, not only financially, but personally. You want to be really into what it is you're studying, unless you're really into what you're going to do after you're done studying, and that works too.
I mean, I think both would be helpful.
So do we have other questions? Yes.
Yeah, so we see you all at like working series now, and from your perspectives, is there some distinctive features you expect from intern with philosophy degree, or is there a reason to say like, oh, this guy has a philosophy degree and I have
I think as somebody who has a philosophy degree, I have an appreciation for people with philosophy degrees. And we also tend to find each other. Like there's a group of attorneys I know who have philosophy degrees, and we share certain characteristics that I find really appealing, both in an attorney and in a friend. Like deep thinker and methodical and fun to talk to, and usually kind of quiet and introverted, as opposed to the lawyers who are just like, So non-philosophy majors might not realize that a philosophy major is bringing those traits to the table, so you might have to spell it out more for them. But as a philosophy major, I do feel like I appreciate that in a candidate.
The ability to read and write critically and analyze is something when I see a philosophy figure, I say, oh, this person can take apart an argument and put together an argument, which is useful no matter what you're doing, right? Whether it's a technical argument or a business argument or an ethical argument, the ability to do that cuts across pretty much every job I've ever seen.
All the interns that come to work at Amazon within the art department are all went to the Art Institute or studied design in some respect. And when I'm like, okay, great, we're going to work on this project. I'm going to need you to write a 6-page document outlining the plan. They're like, I studied art, so I didn't have to write anything. I think philosophy will prep you for that type of stuff a lot better.
We got any other questions?
There's one in the back.
I know, I'm going to hold it back on Britta because students get to ask their questions first. That's all right. What? Anybody? Okay, Britta, please.
Thanks. This is kind of a follow-up to the last question. I'm just wondering about, for those of you who went on the job market without first getting a professional degree or having a pre-existing professional degree, how did you make those very first steps after graduation? How did you translate your transferable skills to an employer, so that you're saying, right, that the people who have this humanities background are better writers, but a lot of the people who were hired came from art degrees? How do you get hired with that philosophy degree? How do you go through the process of selling yourself? How do you set up your resume to reflect your true value and ask for what you're worth as a philosophy major?
Go ahead.
You were asking specifically for people who didn't go to graduate school after their philosophy degree, right?
Yes, but if you have something to add, that's fine too.
Well, I'll let other people speak first. So maybe they have more experience.
I went on the job market right after graduation. I had no idea what it was I was going to do. I didn't know exactly what all of my strengths are. So I started by trying to, it was actually quite a methodical approach. I started by identifying industries where being a really, really good writer is absolutely critical, like PR, journalism, pitching ideas, and being able to construct an idea. So I took jobs like that in order to build those skills so that I can have that on a resume. And from there, I started to identify, here are all the things I need to build I need to have from a skill set perspective, and here's all the different industries it'll translate into next. So I started with like outlining all of these building blocks that I needed to cross through in order to end up at the job that I had later on. So that's sort of like how I got started. Your question was like a loaded one, and I remember like half of the question.
Yeah, that does speak to it. I mean, that was actually speaking to another question I had too, which was like, what search terms did you use, right? Because if you don't have, like, I have an architecture degree, I'm searching for architecture jobs. I think that's something that, as an advisor, I'm asking for, like, for students, this is something, I said, where do I start? What do I go on Indeed.com? What do I type into the search field as a philosopher? So you're speaking to that as well, kind of. You're searching first for writing and then building out from there.
Right, but ultimately, like, I think with anything, you need to have, like, what's your North Star? What does your ideal job look like? What would you be doing? What does your day-to-day look like? And then you can then identify like industry keywords and start practicing like using those words as you're going to networking events. And like philosophy makes you sound really interesting because it's not something that a lot of people like study. So you can provide a really fresh perspective. And when you're networking, and I literally went to like thousands of networking events because I wasn't sure where I was going to start, and I had FOMO, and so I was like, oh my god, I gotta go to everything. Like, what if this one thing I didn't go to is like the ultimate, like my first step into like this career thing that I wanted to do, and so it made me interesting. And people were like, oh, you study philosophy, like what's that about? And you know, then at that point I can sell myself. I can highlight all the different things that philosophy has enabled me to do, like the different skills, like, oh, I can think critically. I'm actually like rock solid as a collaborator. I think objectively and things like that. And then couple that with the experiences in like writing and journalism and being comfortable, like just, you know, pitching my ideas and putting myself out there, it made me really good in the soft skills department. And that's something that people look for, employers look for. So.
I would say as a long-time hiring manager, internships are your friend. An internship is a way for a company to very cheaply evaluate you, far better than a one-day interview or a two-day interview. So take internships, take them for low pay in the industry you want to work at, because that way you'll make contacts, right? Maybe the company you do the internship for is not where you end up, but maybe somebody from that company goes to where you end up, right? And companies love them. They say, I pay 3 months minimal salary to some undergraduate, and I evaluate them every day, right? And lots of things don't cost, you know, showing up on time, being eager, not being intellectually intimidated, throwing yourself into stuff doesn't cost anything to you. So I love to hire interns because I know so much more about them than some random hotshot 5 years out of school who was like, hey, I look really good on the first day, and I turn out to be a jerk on week 3, right? But by month 3, I know who you are.
And then on the flip side, you get to see who they are. Is this a company, is this an industry that's appealing to you or not? Because sometimes it looks really good on paper and it doesn't really resonate for the real experiences of what you thought it would be.
That is so important. Like, it is so important. Like, some of my first internships, I did journalism to build the skills, and I thought, oh, I'm a rock solid writer. And then my first, like, article, the editor told me, you need to write at a 5th grade level. There's too many big words in here. Like, I need you to, like, skim it down and make it super short and very, very succinct and something that you can read in like 2 minutes or something like that. And I was like, what? I was like, I want to be in this industry. I worked so hard to learn these words.
I wasn't together enough to have an internship, and I was very depressed. I think the most depressed was graduating or leaving college and going from a senior to looking for a job. It's really a hard time, but I think a network is really good to have, and get in the ground level and then work your way up. So do something that a monkey could do, but in a place that you like, and then work your way up and say yes to opportunity. Like, always say yes, and then get out of your comfort level every time, and then pretty soon you're doing things that pay you more for.
My experience pretty much speaks exclusively to using philosophy outside of any realm that is logically connected to philosophy. But I think a lot of these same principles apply. And I think the one that I want to underscore is this notion of like being aware of what your unique contribution is going to be to whatever field you're looking to move into, whether or not it is related to philosophy. And I think that we've all kind of like gestured at what that unique contribution is going to be. It's going to be about objectivity and charitable listening, providing the framework for being a good collaborator. And a lot of times those are things that are the soft skills that you're not going to necessarily be able to put on a resume, but they're going to kind of be everywhere. And just know that that is something that people are looking for. So I think it's easy to like wormhole on like, how do I build this philosophy thing in a way that it looks like something that it's not? And that's not the objective. Like, let it sit there as that line on the resume, and let the fact that your work and your presence shows that you're looking to kind of like excavate out true objectives and the means of getting there speak for themselves. And that's kind of like what I did, and it took me a decade to get to like a real grown-up career. But it was the only time where it wasn't working was where I forgot that part of it, that it was worth it.
Soft skills are what you get your second, third, and fourth jobs out of. Whereas people who've worked with you say, oh, I left company X and went to, I left Google and went to Amazon. I remember working with that person. They were so pleasant, so sharp. I mean, assuming you have the base skills for the job, right? Don't want to do wiring if you don't know how electricity works. But given a range of candidates, your soft skills are what, from previous coworkers or what's
I'll just say that what Tina shared is similar to me, and I'm so impressed with Sophie's strategy. I had none of that, and I very much struggled when I was graduating as well. And applied for something, got it, was like, okay, I got a job. And it was a great job. It was at NOAA, so we're a small world. And because it was at NOAA, that was really cool because their mission, and I was working with teams that did STEM recovery planning, but the day-to-day was very administrative, and the culture was mixed. Working for the federal government was a really interesting experience to have had, and to that point of interning or trying out different things, I realized that wasn't where my full career would be, but I was really glad that I had that experience to know that it is a learning journey, and it's part of the fun is getting out there and trying different things. And then if you can be strategic, that's even better.
My phone was kind of like creeping in. I'm like, they both work at NOAA. What is NOAA? I need to.
Oh, yeah, they can back up. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. So it's part of the federal government, and they have a pretty big presence in Seattle. So they have, you were probably at the big headquarters down in Seattle.
Pacific Marine Environmental Lab.
Yeah, and I was at the little fisheries lab right in Montlake. It's just a stone's throw from here.
They're under the bridge.
Yeah. So everybody should go apply for NOAA. It's really the best.
Some of the takeaway.
Next job. Yeah, all the students must know.
So I'm going to jump in just for a second, because in terms of, so this is connected to Britta, one of the pieces of advice that we give our graduate students when they're looking for jobs, and I think it's useful for everyone, and it's something to really think about. A way in which you can pull on your philosophy skills very early on is when you're in a job interview on the front end. And you've already taught, right? You've already heard these people say, one of the things you should be good at, or you're likely to be good at, is listening carefully, right? And you're very good at making distinctions and thinking about content, right? You've gotten the comments back on your paper that say, you didn't really answer the question, or why didn't you do it this way, or whatever. So draw on those skills. So to the extent that you can stay calm, really listen to what the person's asking you. Try to answer the questions, not just say whatever you thought you wanted to say when you came in the room. And then if you're not sure what they're asking, or you're not sure if you've answered the question, then ask the follow-up. Because the other thing you do have to do, and this is hard for everybody, I think, when they first get out, like, work is not like school. So an interview is not a test. It's an interaction and a conversation. And the more you can get it into that territory, the better off you'll be. So if you display to them like, I'm not sure I answered your question. If you can display to them you've got the guts to say like, I thought you were asking me this, but now that I start answering, I think maybe you're asking about something else. Will you clarify for me? Right? Then they know that when you're working and you come up against something and you're not sure, you're going to come talk to them. And that's what they want you to do. Right? Or when you make a mistake or you have a misunderstanding, that you can bring that, like you're strong enough and secure enough to bring it to the surface. The other thing is, when you're very careful about answering questions and you listen carefully, you show them that you know, like, that your thinking is nuanced enough so that you see distinctions and you see differences, right? And you can be empathetic. Like, there are all sorts of skills you can display in an interview. Now, I say that while saying that if it's early on, if it's early days, and it's a job you really want, like your adrenaline is going to be through the roof, and you're going to be nervous, and right. So you got to be kind to yourself too. Like, you won't be perfect, but to the extent that you can turn it into a conversation, and a conversation where you really have those kind of critical listening skills and engagement skills on high. It'll really serve you. It'll really serve you well, and it'll serve you well in a way that, you know, having the package description of who you think you need to show you are in order to get the job that you think they have, because there'll be all sorts of misunderstandings in that process. The more you can have the back and forth, the more you'll know what they're really looking for, and they'll appreciate that you're really listening to them.
And I'll add to that, preparation is a big piece of it as well. So you want to feel very prepared for the interview, and then you need to be in a space where, as prepared as you are, you're ready for the actual conversation that could be very different than what you prepared. But those two things do complement each other.
And I wanted to add to you with respect to interviews, don't forget that you are interviewing them too, and you have power to decide that that is not actually the job that you want. Sometimes you learn things in an interview that completely change your perspective. Or sometimes it's just a tiny little feeling where you have like a sense of doubt, like, is this really right for me? So own your power, interview them back.
Piece of advice, I would say, like, the day that you have that big interview, this is just what I do for myself, and I still do to this day. I would stand in front of the mirror and I would tell myself how great I am. I would repeat all of the different amazing values I bring to the table, and that actually calms my nerves before the interview. I also tend to read up on the company, and I will like identify like 2 or 3 things that this company was recently in the news for. Like, for example, if you're at an early stage startup, they raise X number of dollars during like whatever round of like funding. That's an interesting fact. It shows the company that, oh, you've done your homework, you've done your research, you're going one step more than what your competitors would, and you'd be so surprised at the sheer number of people that just apply for roles and don't even know what this company is truly doing and what their mission actually is, and that can easily make you stand out. The other thing that I think is also really important to do is, if there's a particular role in an industry that you want to be part of, and you may not have, say you only have like 5% of the skills, and like that's just in the nice to have category and not necessarily in the here's the base, like, you know, foundational skills that you have. I would read up on those industries, because that, knowing those industries, following those things, being able to use the terms, being able to like articulate what's happening there shows passion and interest, and that can land you the internship, which will then give you the experiences that you need to slowly move up in that company or in that particular industry.
I heard recently, to the extent that you know where you want to go, part of the challenge can be even figuring out exactly where you want to put your energy. But once you have something in mind and you have a place in mind, this term I learned is be a vulture. Just volunteer there, work there for free if you need to, but if you can get them to know you, your possibility of getting hired just increases tenfold, and interning is a great way to do that, as we've been talking about. The other piece of figuring out what you want to do ties to a lot of what we've been maybe speaking of in our personal level, which is we all have these journeys, and I think most of us weren't, you know, at this point in time, I'm going to be sitting in this room talking to philosophy undergrads, and I'm going to have done all of these things to prepare. I had no idea when I graduated that I would be in this place. Couldn't even envision anything like it. I'm very happy with where it came together, but sometimes I wasn't happy in that journey, and sometimes I had to make these pivots, and it's not easy at the time. Setbacks are hard, but you're all strong. You've earned a are in the middle of earning a really hard degree, so you'll be fine as you work through it all.
Yeah, and I think that pivoting is pretty universal. I mean, if we're going to be, think about how many years you're going to spend in your life working. You're not going to be the same person. Jobs change, people change, your interests change. So if things are not going the way you expected, just know that you can always make a change, and you have the skills to learn something new, even in your 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. You can always learn something new.
So I want to pause right now because I see the time. Some of you may need to get to class at 12:30. So for anybody who needs to leave, please feel free. If anyone has still got questions, I'll ask about general questions, but then also, if we don't have any of those, then it's fine. I think the panelists are happy to talk with people one-on-one or informally once we finish. But let me just ask if there are any general questions left. Anybody else not have a chance? Okay, so then let's thank all our panelists.